Go. Oh boy. Hi everybody. I finally had to do something to get the bangs out of my eyes. I can see you all. Hope you're having a fine Tuesday. I tell you, we've got a lot of nature and actually a little bit of late breaking news here that I'll share with you at the end. Let's go ahead and get started with tonight's program. Yeah. Let's get right into the heart of tonight's program. If you had a chance to read last week's column, or even if you didn't, we're going to lead off our program this evening with a little look at a bird that either you know about them and you're familiar with their habits, or you are just struck that they're actually here in Illinois. It's the Quaker or monk parakeet. I chose to write about these because I went and had a look at them recently. Every week, some of you may know this, every week I go and I spend Sundays with my mom and we go out and drive around, get her out of the house a little bit, and we go look at local curiosities, whether it's a trip to the dog park to watch dogs run around, or up to the park street to watch the ducks and the geese. But we took a little bit farther drive from her house in Wheaton, a little bit farther east to that famous destination, the Commonwealth Edison substation on Swift Road. I've heard about this for a long time, but I hadn't had a chance to go and check it out. This is a parakeet that is not native to North America, but has found its way into many states across the country. I actually first heard about these several years ago. I belonged to a group called the Greater Chicago Cage Bird Club. And from time to time, club members would be called in by Commonwealth Edison to do what they called Quaker Rescues. These birds, as we'll see in a few slides, have a tendency to nest in some somewhat unusual and sometimes inconvenient and sometimes unsafe locations. And bird club members would go in and take away any unfledged young from those nests. They would raise them and then find them homes. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to learn a little bit about these Quakers and then share what I learned with you. Quakers or monk parakeets, they get their name, the common name actually comes from a couple of different directions. One, Quaker, some references say that it refers to the gray front, which in some ways, I guess, resembles what Quakers, the humans, will wear, plain colored clothing. It also is said to refer to their habit of quaking. These birds are very active and they tend to kind of shimmy and shiver and shake quite a bit. So Quaker in that respect actually refers to their behavior, and not so much their feathers. Monk, that common name is said to refer to the way the green on their nape kind of resembles the hood of a monk. That's also what's called out in the species name, Monachus. And the genus, Myocida, is, that translates to mouse parrot, one for their smaller size. These birds are not quite a foot long from the tip of their head to the tip of their tail. And also the mouse color, that brownish or grayish color of their front of their face and on their breast. Cute little parrots. You can buy them in pet stores. In fact, pet stores is one of the reasons we see them in so many places today. Here's a look at what their native range is. You can see they're a bird of South America, Argentina, some of the smaller countries down there. They do extend somewhat into Brazil. they were found to be, I think, A, easy to capture, and 2, fairly entertaining to watch. And for that reason, they were pretty readily accepted in the pet trade. In the 1950s and 60s, many were captured in South America, and they were shipped to pet stores hither and yon. And as things like that so often occur, some get out. They get lost, they fly, and there were enough of them that made their way into the wild, whether it was accidentally or on purpose. Any of you who have kept parrots or lived around parrots know that even the little ones can be pretty noisy, pretty chattery. So I suspect that in addition to accidental releases, there might have been a few on purpose releases that somebody maybe just got tired of living with a parrot and thought, I'll give it its freedom. Because of those releases, whether on purpose or accidental, this is, and this is, by the way, from that great website, eBird. All the purple spots that you see, those are places that are now inhabited, that have had Quaker or monk parakeet sightings. So down there in South America, you can see that natural range, and then you can see across the United States and across many parts of Europe, there are now established colonies of monk parakeets. As I said, they came to this country, well, gosh, 60, 70 years ago now, which is plenty of time, as we've learned with so many introductions, for population established. There's actually records of them occurring in 43 states. Now, not all 43 states have colonies like we see here in northeastern Illinois. But one of the things that makes the birds around here remarkable is their ability to tolerate the temperatures, the wide temperature swings that we have here. Even in the dead of winter, you can see these guys out flying around. It's been, the people who have been studying them in this area have found that backyard bird feeders are often the key to their survival in wintertime. They are starting to adapt somewhat to foraging for natural food sources, grass seed heads, and maybe a few berries here and there. They are primarily seed-eating birds though, but they go to bird feeders and find that they can do quite nicely off of that free buffet that so many people offer to them. Now, one of the things that makes monk parakeets stand out, even amongst the quite varied world of parrots, is that they do not nest in cavities. Here we've got a few examples. We've got an Amazon parrot down there at the bottom, the little green guy. We've got a couple different species of macaws here. They are all exhibiting what would be the normal, quote unquote, means of nesting. Parrots, by and large, far and wide, nest in cavities. Some of you know I have a macaw myself, a blue and gold macaw. That bill that he has is capable, well, it can crush walnuts. It can also shred 2x4s. So when these birds, when they find even just the start of a cavity, they can enlarge it and customize it and make it their own, thanks to that sharp and very strong bill on the front of their face. For whatever reason, monk or Quaker parakeets decided to literally branch out. And instead of nesting in cavities, they nest in these communal nests. Now, in the column, if you had a chance to read that, I mentioned part of, it was an essay in the book by Bernd Heinrich. I mentioned him frequently. He's the great naturalist out in New England. He writes that the monk parakeet is closely related to what's called the cliff parakeet down in South America, nesting in cliffs in what amounted to little cavities side by side, kind of provided the springboard for this very closely related species to spread out and start building nests very close together in trees. Now, if we were to look inside one of these large nests, and this a photo from the ComEd substation over there in Lombard. we'd see something, well, maybe not quite this orderly, but if you can imagine an apartment house of nests, each with its own separate entrance, just built side by side. Sometimes there are multiple levels. ComEd does have a removal program for these nests if they get too large. So sometimes they're single story, sometimes they're multiple story, but these birds nest side by side by side. And when they fly in, they know exactly which little hole within that nest is theirs. Now, if you'd like to go see these yourself, I threw this map in. This is just a Google, kind of a Google map, but what we have here is St. Charles Road. And this is just a little bit east of Glen Ellen. Glen Ellen would be over here on the west. Here is Swift Road. Swift Road runs between St. Charles Road and I believe Lake Street. But from this area, from the St. Charles area, I've just always taken Geneva Road heading east. It merges with St. Charles right around the Five Corners area of Glen Ellen. There's a stoplight here at Swift Road, and just a short distance north of Swift, there's a gravel parking lot. This line going through this part of the photo here, that is the Great Western Trail. So those of you who are bicyclists, you might want to just ride your bike east to check these birds out. This big complex here, this is the ComEd substation. The birds that I found easiest to see and photograph were over here on the west side of Swift Road. I also saw some, there's quite a row of brush here and shrubs on the east side. There might be nests on that side too. I tell you the truth, I didn't look that closely. What I did notice was when I parked my car, even my mom said, oh, look, there's a green bird. These birds are pretty active right now, flying back and forth. You'll notice that it is immediately adjacent to, this is Churchill Woods Forest Preserve here. And here is where these, you can't get too close. There's an awful lot of voltage in this area. And ComEd rightly so, has put a very large fence around there, but you can step off of the Great Western Trail, set your camera up, get your binoculars out, and you can watch these birds going back and forth, bringing more nesting material. I would imagine that they are in the midst of their breeding season right now as things are warming up. So they'll probably be busy not only feathering their nest, but also take care of their eggs and then soon to be their young. So it's definitely worth checking out. It's a little bit of an unusual thing to see around here, but this is, I should also mention, one of many monk parakeet nesting sites in the area. There's another one in Elmhurst. They're probably most famously known from the Hyde Park neighborhood in Chicago, although recently the numbers there have gone down. Now, whether the birds have dispersed or what exactly has changed in that neighborhood, we're not exactly sure, but it really is possible to see parrots here in northeastern Illinois. You just have to know where to look. Now, bringing our nature into a little bit more local level, I wanted to share with you an email that I got last week. This is from a woman who was in our King County Certified Naturalist class a few years back. And this email came, she was pretty freaked out. She said, a few minutes ago, I stepped outside to go to my garage. She knew that there was something living under there. The hole originally had been dug by a groundhog, but lo and behold, what does she find but several babies playing around the hole? She made a video, she took several photos. She was guessing that they were foxes, but she wanted to know for sure, are they? This is the first, and she was a little bit frazzled, but is there anything else that she needed to know? Well, here's the photo that she sent. And to be honest, when I first looked at it, I thought, I'm not sure, is that a fox or is that a coyote? That's a different angle, but I started looking at a couple of different little field marks that help differentiate the fox from the coyote. One, actually the main one, is, you can barely see it here, the tips of the tail. In a red fox, unless something has happened, the tip of the tail tends to be white. Now, some individuals will have more white, some will have less white, but if you see a white tip on the tail, that's a pretty good giveaway that we're looking at a fox. Now, this person did take a video, and I'm going to see if we can travel from this PowerPoint to the website. If that doesn't work, I've also got the website pulled up. We can look at it there. But I wanted to share with you this this really cute little video of watching these foxes cavort. Oh, let's see. That looks like it's going to work. All right, let's go down here to the video, and let's enlarge, and let's take a look at this fox family at play. So you can see we've got a little prey item there, that that one little fox going down towards the hole. It's got a short, whoop, it's gone. That looks like a nice fat vole, which is, as we've called them in the past, that's nature's baked potato there.
I don't see anything.
You don't see anything. Uh-oh. All right, let's stop it. I'm glad you said that, Mary. Let me stop that. You know, I wonder if, how about now? Can you see that now?
The only thing that's up is the original photo.
Okay, so can you, right now, do you see little baby foxes?
No.
Oh, that's too bad.
Still
They're so cute.
There's just one.
Oh, so you can't see them running back and forth.
Nope,
No.
just the
Oh,
still photo.
let me try one more time. Let me stop this. All right, let's try. I'm going to stop the share. And I'm going to.
Yeah, I think you have to stop the share in
Yeah.
order to show it.
All right, so now do you see the start of the video?
No, but you look good.
Well, there's a compliment. Can you see the little guys now?
No.
All right,
No.
you know what? I'm going to quit wasting time on that. There's some really cute little foxes here, and maybe by next week I'll get a hold of the original video, and I'll just go ahead and share it that way. Let me stop this so I'm not distracted by that background noise. We'll just go back because we actually have a little bit more video to share. We'll go back to where we were at here. All right, so this is what she sent me initially, and that white tip is the giveaway there. Let's go. Oh, there we go. So this is some more fox footage. This was Carol and George in Batavia sent this. Now, this is a little pixelated here, but you can kind of see the romping and cavorting that's going on in this backyard in Batavia as well. Another fox family. These guys are a little bit bigger, but if we add, let's see. Here we can see the relation in size of mama to her little kits. But the point of this segment is it's baby fox season. The red fox is what we see in our neighborhoods. And as the video that I tried to show you showed that homeowner found the woodchuck burrow that was underneath her garage became the home for this family of 5 little foxes. She's getting more used to the idea of having the foxes there, although she does plan to take some measures to preserve integrity of the garage and the garage foundation. She also mentioned that it's getting a little odoriferous around her backyard because Mama, as the fox kits are finished with their prey items, there's always scraps that are left behind. And she has no plans to evict the foxes. She's actually started to enjoy them now. The shock of finding them there has worn off, and she's getting a kick out of their antics. She said that in the last couple of days, they've started to explore beyond the boundaries of her yard. So another sign that the foxes are growing up. Sometimes the mom will actually choose to move the entire family from that natal den as they start to get bigger, and maybe it's a means of her introducing them to the habitat that surrounds that den. But they start to spread out more. Sometimes they'll take shelter in a culvert or underneath a shed away from that original den. But it helps them to start to extend their explorations and get more comfortable with the idea of leaving home, which they're going to have to do usually by the end of summertime. So season, if you're lucky enough to have foxes in your yard, count that as a bonus, because they are really, really good at controlling all sorts of things that tend to overpopulate. Some of you might have had trouble. We talked about these guys a few weeks ago with voles. We had a lot of snow this winter. The vole population was able to be preserved for the most part. So there's a lot of work for these foxes to do. Now, I'm going to see if we can have a little success with technology here. Let me start this, and please somebody tell me if you can hear.
Somebody in my old neighborhood found a hammerhead worm.
Okay, did everybody hear hammerhead worm?
Yes.
All right, I'll keep playing then.
It definitely looks like some type of bipalium on their carpet in their house last night. They'd been outside earlier, their apartment building with their dog, and then they'd also been at a dog park in the Urbana Parks District. And I thought you might be a good person to call about this. I've got it. I've got the worm. It's alive. I probably put it in my incubator over the weekend. Yeah, I just thought I'd call and see if you had any thoughts on it.
Okay, so the internet is kind of an amazing place. Stuff floats around out there for years and years and years. Back in, I believe it was 2014, I had written about hammerhead worms. We actually found one during one of our Park District field trips. This was over at Delnor Woods Park. And it was not a spring day, actually, it was a fall day. It was chilly and rainy. And there often are rainy days. There were a lot of earthworms on the pavement. Well, this fourth grader in our field trip program looks down and says, "Oh, look at this worm." And here it is. This is a hammerhead worm. Now, as we've mentioned in past good-natured episodes, the earthworm population that inhabits many of our yards and some of our parks is mostly composed of non-native species. So I guess it would kind of make sense that a non-native predator would eventually make its way onto the scene. This hammerhead worm is an Asian species, and it was thought to have been brought to this country in landscape material. Again, very common way for species to be introduced to our country. But it is, unlike our earthworms that are they're detritivores, they feed on a lot of mostly dead plant material. They turn it into soil. They're widely recognized for being able to produce those castings that are really good in a garden setting. Well, these guys prey on, the hammerhead worm preys on our other earthworm species. They do so by kind of sidling up alongside of it and then excreting digestive juices that help to dissolve the earthworm. Sounds like a terrible way to go. And then they slurp up the contents or that earthworm body. The person that left the voicemail, you might have heard, is actually down in Urbana-Champaign. And they think that hammerhead worm came in on their dog from their dog park. It had been quite rainy down there, and these guys do come up just as the earthworms do. They come up to feed. So not this immediate past weekend, but the weekend before, I believe the date was April 10th and 11th. I decided I was going to go over to Del Norwoods. We had quite a bit of rain on that Saturday, the 10th. I thought I would go over and try my luck at seeing if I could find some more hammerhead worms. So I looked, I actually waited until Sunday, which maybe was the first mistake because it wasn't as rainy on Sunday as it had been on Saturday. A lot of the pavement had dried off. I'd also forgotten that a couple of years ago, the Park District resurfaced all the asphalt trails at Del Norwoods. So it was going to make it a lot harder. My plan of just looking and picking up worms on the pavement got scuttled when I saw how high up that asphalt has been built. So I decided to go looking where the worms live. I started turning over logs, and I tell you, I did not find any hammerhead worms. I'm going to keep looking. If I find some, I'll certainly let you guys know. But I found all kinds of other cool things underneath these logs. Let's watch this video. I turned this log over, and I was excited to see an earthworm that definitely looked like it's not very happy. There's some kind of kinks and looks like some strictures here in the body of the earthworm. As somebody who's kept earthworms for a variety of reasons for a variety of years, I can tell this earthworm probably isn't going to last too much longer, but keep your eye on the organism to the right of the worm. So that creature is a predator, and earthworms are actually one of its favorite foods. You can see it's exploring there with its antennae. It is maybe moving in for another little munch. So that organism, that predator right there, is a baby lightning bug. I think it's Photinus pyralis, which unfortunately we've got a lot of different kinds of lightning bugs. That's not the unfortunate part. It's actually good that we have different species of lightning bugs, but unfortunately a lot of them don't have common names. Sometimes pyralis is referred to as the lawn lightning bug or the common lightning bug. It is the dominant species throughout our entire area. It's pretty adaptable. And it does require some moist conditions, but living underneath logs and rocks, places where earthworms frequent, is a very common place to find them. They look a little bit, if you just glance quickly, you might think you're looking at a sow bug or a pill bug, but if you look a little more closely, you'll start to notice there's differences. The back is dark, but edged in a light color, usually like a yellow or a cream color. The belly oftentimes is pinkish. And then, I don't know if this is, I might have to back up slides. Here we go. Okay, I'm gonna stop it here. This is the glowing, what will become the flashing part of the adult firefly. In the larva like this, it glows all the time. I tried to see if I could make a video, like create some shades so you could see that it was glowing, and that part didn't work out, but we'll just watch this guy in action again as I talk a little bit more. But they are fierce predators, and they go after all sorts of soft-bodied organisms. They're a vital part of our soil-based ecosystems. They just need to make sure that they don't dry out. So sometimes you can find them in the evenings. I know when I used to work down at Red Oak Nature Center, sometimes we'd spot them if we were doing, say, a spring or a fall night hike, and we'd be walking on the bike trail down there. A lot of portions of that bike trail are covered in moss, and nighttime, the humidity tends to rise. These baby lightning bugs would be foraging amongst the moss on the sides of the trail. And at night, you actually can see that glow. I've also found them, sometimes I'm that weird neighbor that does gardening after dark, turning the soil in the garden on the side of my house. Sometimes I would see them. That actually made me stop turning a lot of the soil over because I didn't want to disturb the lightning bugs and all of that pretty tightly knit ecology that occurs in the soil. So anyway, keep your eyes out for these guys. As we get into May, they will go into their pupation. That form will, it's going to molt one more time. It's going to form a hard pupal case. You can tell it's an insect, but its abdomen might squiggle a little bit, but it won't be moving as much as it is right now. And then just in a few weeks, as we get into June, then those lightning bugs will start to emerge. I was hoping we could see, but it doesn't look like I got, let me see if I can get it to play a little more forward. The other giveaway, yeah, you can kind of see here, the other giveaway that these are not some other sort of isopod or other sort of soil dwelling crustacean is that they've only got 6 legs. So if you see something weird like this crawling in your soil, go ahead, pick it up. It's not gonna it can't bite you, it can't hurt you. Hold it in your hand, make it, cup your hands around it so that it's dark, and you'll probably be able to see that glowing abdomen, and you'll know you found yourself a baby lightning bug. So this was a very cool find, but it wasn't the only thing I found underneath these logs. This was an insect that I thought, what in the world is this? It was constantly on the move. I probably should have just made a video of it, but I was trying to get a still shot because I honestly didn't know what I was looking at first. It has all the features of a mature insect, but it also kind of looks like a larva. So here we can see it's got antennae, it's got 6 legs, it's got what looks like wing covers here, but they are reduced. And that's got my brain thinking. Last fall, we talked about a group of beetles called Rove Beetles. And that's actually what this turned out to be. This is a brown Rove Beetle. Rove Beetles are, when we think of beetles, which by the way, lightning bugs are beetles too. Beetles have tough, leathery wing covers. And that wing cover generally extends to the back part of the abdomen. But in Rove beetles, it doesn't. It's very short. And their wings, they can usually fly. To tell you the truth, I didn't investigate. I didn't pick this guy up. I didn't look to see how big the wings are. But in Rove beetles, here's the short wing covers right here. And the wings fold up almost like a little origami sheets. They fold up in a very intricate way, and they actually fit underneath this much reduced wing cover. These guys are found in deciduous woods. They are predators too. They're roving around, feeding on things that live in the ground in our woodlands. And it was, I always love it when I find a bug I've never seen before. Maybe you have Rove beetles in your yard too. Then I found these. And what we're looking at here are these, they almost looked as if they were fluorescing. In fact, if I'd been thinking about it, I would have gone back with the black light to see if this is yet another cool thing that glows. But these look like shiny little pearls, and they are, they're about the size of a, oh gosh, what would that be? They're smaller than a Tic Tac. And they're rounded. They look moist. They are moist. In fact, they need to remain moist or they will not progress. Those are slug eggs. Slugs are very prolific. Slugs in this area are by and large introduced species as well. When we brought plants in here from the old country, we brought a whole load of other things too. And but these, the slugs are laying their eggs underneath rocks, underneath logs. I'm sure if you look in your yard, you will find these as well. But they're kind of a curious thing. Sometimes I'll get questions from people because it's something you don't really think about, but they're out there and they're there right now. Slug eggs. And then, since we're talking about weird stuff, it's also fairy shrimp season. Fairy shrimp are, they're kind of the freshwater version of sea monkeys. If you ever sent away, and it's okay to admit it if you did, I know I did, you know, those ads that were used to be in the back of the comic books for sea monkeys. Well, fairy shrimp are these little crustaceans that in our area live in ephemeral or temporary ponds. These are the ponds that are formed by snow melt and by the rains we get in the springtime. And they are, by definition, temporary. Most of the organisms that live in an ephemeral pond have special adaptations so that they can survive in that ephemeral sort of ecosystem. And they probably wouldn't do well if that water were to be permanent. Once you have permanent water, you start to look at permanent residents. Oftentimes fish get introduced. Fish would love to eat fairy shrimp. So, but the fairy shrimp life cycle is really uniquely adapted to ephemeral ponds. A few weeks ago, we talked about some frogs that live in these temporary pools. They are adapted to having their tadpoles develop fairly quickly so that they can leave the pond before it dries up, because they wouldn't be able to survive once the water went away. Fairy shrimp, they don't, this is the adult stage, so there's no way they are going to be leaving that water. But when they reproduce, their eggs are in a little structure called a cyst. And that cyst is incredibly resistant to drying out. The pond, which is not going to last the entire year, as the pond water dries up, those cysts go down into the bottom of the pond on the top of the soil, and they'll sit there for a year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. I've heard some species can actually survive nearly 100 years in that cyst stage. If no water comes around, they are able to survive that severe desiccation. But just like with the sea monkeys that we sent away for, all you got to do is add some water, and the fairy shrimp come back to life. Well, these guys don't come back, but their offspring do. You can see here on the right-hand side of the screen, this gives a kind of an overview of what to look for. There's not really much else in an ephemeral pond that will look like fairy shrimp. You will sometimes see a little amphipod we call a side swimmer. Sometimes there's some aquatic sow bugs, but they don't have this translucent quality that you see in the fairy shrimp. Those 11 pairs of swimming legs move in this really kind of calming, soothing, wave-like motion. The shrimp that I found around here look just like this. This, by the way, these were some fairy shrimp that were found recently in DeKalb County, but our King County fairy shrimp look the same. We actually have them in some of the ephemeral ponds behind Hickory Knolls. And they've always been this sort of pinkish orangish color, but that color can vary depending on what they're eating. It can go anywhere from blue and green, which would indicate a diet high in algae, to the reddish orange that must be maybe some of the zooplankton that they're feeding on in our ponds around here. But they only last a few weeks. I don't recall, as the water levels start to drop, that signals them to drop their eggs, and then the adults go away, and then the pond goes away, and then we add water again. And if the conditions are just right, which, by the way, they also require a fair amount of dissolved oxygen in that coolish temporary water in order to survive, then we get fairy shrimp back again. But they're just really cool, and they're not here for very long. So if you have a chance to get out to an ephemeral pond, it's always fun to go on the hunt and see if you too can find some fairies. Now, this is just a little fluff piece. I've been walking around, and this year, I've been struck by the beauty of our trees. These were some maple seeds that fell in my backyard. And a lot of times when you're looking at maple seeds, it's when they're mature and they've come down in their helicopter-like fashion, and they're just all over the patio, or they're all over the deck, or they're filling up your gutters. They're sprouting and you're getting tiny little maple trees all over your yard. But look at how pretty they are in this early stage. A little bit of fuzz or pubescence on them, that deep maroon color. I thought was just a really striking bunch of maple seeds. And then I walked past an oak tree. Oak flowers are often underappreciated because a lot of our oaks are quite old. They're quite tall. The flowers are really out of our line of view. If you're an allergy sufferer, you might be familiar with the pollen that these male flowers are producing. They're really cool looking too, aren't they? This was over at Davis Field Park here in St. Charles. But if you've got a smaller oak tree near you, look at the ends of the branches and take in those flowers. Those are destined to produce the acorns that we'll be seeing in the fall. And then this is kind of the what I see as the king of the springtime events in our hardwood trees around here. This is the opening leaf bud of a shagbark hickory. And I've had pictures like this emailed to me in the past. Here's another one here. People say, what kind of flower is this? Again, this is something in a mature hickory tree. It's a lot of time this is occurring above our heads. It's not something that we can take in easily. But if you're lucky enough to have young hickories nearby, these were taken, go figure, in Hickory Knolls, not near the building. This was a little bit farther back. We've got a grove of hickory trees about midway through the natural area off of, if you look on our trail maps, it would be midway through on what we call the yellow trail. But that rich yellow and orange, the reddish color of that leaf bud, and it's big too. These are about the size of my fist, so really quite stunning. And I just wanted to remind you that this is the season where beauty really is everywhere. Now, remember this video from last week? We'll play it again in case you didn't tune in or forgotten. This is a pair of owls in a neighborhood here in St. Charles, just off of 7th Street. Listen. You can hear the two tones. The deeper tone is the male, the higher tone is the female. Male's on the left, female's on the right. So this is courtship behavior. We had our friends at King County Audubon take a look at it, and they said there's definitely courting going on here, but this is not the right time of year in our human time frame. The way we tend to look at owls, you know, all the books say that they court in the November, December timeframe. They're usually nesting in January and February. In fact, now most of the owls, the courting owls in this area, are their owlets are starting to leave the nest. These guys are way behind, if that's indeed what they're up to. So let's go on to this map. So this is I'll start here in the lower right. This is where that video, the general area that video was taken in. Well, yesterday I was at Potawatomi and I was talking to Elisa Dressler. She's one of our front desk reception people at Hickory Knolls. At Potawatomi. And she was telling me about these owls, and what she described is exactly what's in that video, only it's occurring here at 10th and Howard. Now, she knows that the owls that are hooting like this every night, and she says it is every night pretty much right around dusk, that they then go over to a tree where they nested, I believe it's now 2 years ago. This is at 11th and Oak Street in the backyard of a house over here. So this is all pretty close together. I can't believe that there's two different pairs of owls that are performing in this very unique and unusual way in about the same time frame. So there's going to be more to this story. I just don't know what it's going to be. Elisa said that the male of this pair is very good at hunting and bringing food treats to the fish. She'll often see them feeding in the tree outside of her house. And then they will fly over here to the tree that they nested in a couple of years ago. We also know that this neighborhood over here off of 7th Street had a nesting pair in it. I believe it was now 2 years ago. So definitely something going on. Now, whether this pair did have a failed nest attempt this year and maybe they're going to try and salvage it and see if they can still raise some owlets yet this year, or if they're just, they have nothing else to do. I mean, they're empty nesters, literally, and they're just, enjoying some date nights. I don't know, but I just thought it was too much of a coincidence to not be related. I'm going to see what else I can find out about those courting owls. Now, next week, we're going to take a look at a species of tree known as the white walnut or the butternut tree, somewhat unusual in this area, and also somewhat of a mystery. We're going to take a look at a fairly common wading bird in an up-close encounter that we had recently here at the Park District with the great blue heron. There's an unusual insect that's actually living here right next to my desk at Good Natured World Headquarters, the Eastern Lubber Grasshopper. I'm going to bring you up to date on the Citywide Nature Challenge. That'll be happening soon in St. Charles. Of course, we'll have lots of reader emails and a lot more. But I wanted to end the slideshow a little bit sooner than usual tonight because we've got something here to open. I'm going to end the screen share and we're going to come back here. At a delivery here at the office the other day. And this, I should say for sensitive viewers, because I don't know what we're going to be finding in here. This was an owl that unfortunately did not make it across a road. Oh, it's frozen. It's not a great horned owl, and it's not a screech owl. It's a barred owl. So you might be thinking, all right, what are you going to do with a barred owl? I tell you, I'm not going to put it in the freezer here because I still have to take care of the great horned owl that's still in the freezer here. My coworkers have been extremely tolerant and patient and are not freezing any of their lunches or anything right now. My plan it was to get the great horn and the barred owl down to the Field Museum into their bird lab, so these could be processed and added to the bird lab collection. There would be available for researchers who are studying either of these species. Doesn't sound as though that the field is going to be accepting volunteers there again anytime soon. I will hold on to this for a little bit while longer, but I did want to just show a couple of, let's see, here, a few weeks ago we had the mystery of the feathers. In fact, those are here too. Someone sent me these feathers. I've about decided that these are feathers from a turkey because they're super stiff and there's not much at the base of them. That's pretty typical of what we see in a lot of our poultry. Look at these owl feathers. Owls are just giant mufflers. Their bodies are meant to, they're built to fly silently because that's their key to catching their prey. And so even things like their wing feathers are kind of fluffy at the base. I'm gonna, and I'm sorry, Meg, I know this is not something you wanted to see, but I'm gonna hold this up so you can see, even the barred owl will have, is that in focus? See that? It looks like bristles. The leading edge of the primary wing feathers on an owl have that bristle-like or comb-like quality to them. There, we can see it better now. That helps disrupt the air that's going over the wings and adds to that silent flight that's so important. Now, because this guy's frozen, I wanted to be able to show you the ears, and I can't. The great horned owl that we had before a few weeks ago, its ears are pretty much across from each other on the side of its head. The barred owl, however, is one of the species where the ears are a little bit lopsided. That's a big help when an owl is foraging and hunting for food at night. Being able to figure out where that sound is coming from is important when the light levels are low. Barred owls tend to hunt quite a bit in the dark. Barn owls, B-A-R-N, they hunt almost exclusively in the dark, and the angles of their ears is quite markedly different. But these guys will use that difference in where their ears are to help better differentiate where that sound is coming from. When the ears like ours, when they're opposite, we kind of have to cup our ears sometimes to figure out where the sound is coming from. But the owls, they for one thing, they have a very much more acute, tuned sense of hearing, and they can sense the time difference. If a sound is coming from down low and it hits the lower ear first, it helps them triangulate and figure out a little bit better where that sound is coming from. And I was hopeful when we opened this box that we'd be able to see the ears, but it's still frozen, so we can't do that. But anyway, barred owl, if this does not make it to the Field Museum, our plan is to, it's not a candidate for taxidermy that I can see, but we will process it so we can have the skull. Maybe in a few months, I'll be able to show you the difference in those ear openings from the skull itself. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Does anybody have any questions, comments, news from the world of nature that you were able to observe this past week? No? Well, it sounds like we're in for quite a warm spell. I was frankly, I was a little disappointed today that we didn't get the snow that they said we were going to, but I'm probably alone in that attitude. But it is supposed to warm up. I would think that once we hit the 70s, and I think I even heard there's an 80s in the forecast next week, we're going to see a whole nother wave of springtime nature coming. We're going to be looking at some more there's more migrating birds coming through here. There's going to be the next wave of spring wildflowers. There's those things that we have coming up that I promised. We even have a special guest in the form of that grasshopper next week. So hope you'll join us then. So great to see everybody. Oh, who's that? Oh, Mike saw a gorgeous fox on Knoll Creek. Ran away. I know how that is. I try so hard to have this phone, ready, but technology is not my friend. And oftentimes when I go to use it, it's just not going to do what I wanted to. But yeah, it is fox season. Those mama foxes right now are running themselves literally ragged. If you see a fox and it looks a little scrawny right now, chances are it's busy taking care of its family. So keep your eyes open. Love to hear from you during the week if there's things you see or if you have questions about. If not, I hope to see you back again next week. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Pam.
Bye,
Bye.
Pam.
Bye now.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you.
Hold on.
Good night.
Have a good one.